Welcome back to the Discovering Home podcast. I'm your host, Carla B. Monterosa, a coach for moms who desire more time and flexibility for their home and families. If you've ever felt torn between the desire to be home and the reality of your bills, you're not alone. Financial concerns are one of the biggest hurdles for working moms who long to be more present at home. But with prayer, planning, and wise stewardship, it is possible. Today, I want to share the mindset shifts and practical strategies that helped my family go from 2 steady incomes to 1, without losing our peace and gaining more joy and purpose along the way. But before we talk about how to make it work, I want to start with what it's really costing you to keep up with a lifestyle built around working outside your home. Whether you work outside the home or decide to stay home with your children, both paths come with financial and emotional implications. So before we talk about budgets and planning, let's pause and really consider what it's costing you to work outside your home. First financially, and then we'll talk about the emotional side. If you commute, there are the obvious travel expenses. Gas isn't cheap and your car needs maintenance. Oil changes, tires, and the occasional repair. Then there's how you present yourself at work. You buy professional clothing, maybe get items dry cleaned, or feel pressure to update your wardrobe from time to time. If you have little ones in daycare, you already know how high those costs can be. And the more children you have, the higher that number climbs. When we had both our girls in daycare, we were paying about the cost of a 1-bedroom apartment every month. That's a lot of money. Maybe you've also hired help around the house, a cleaning service, lawn care, or extra childcare, simply because your time and energy are stretched too thin. Then there are the small, everyday things that add up. That daily Starbucks run on the way to work or during your break, lunches out because there's no time to pack one, and takeout for dinner because after a long day of working and commuting, who has the energy to cook? When you start adding all those things together, you begin to realize it can be very expensive to work outside your home, and all that impacts what you're truly taking home at the end of the year. That's why it's so important to know how much it's really costing you to leave your house and go to work. I'm a big fan of writing things down. I have lists for everything. It helps me see clearly and stay organized. So I want to encourage you to do the same. Make your list. Write down every expense tied to working outside your home. And get an honest picture of where your money is going. You might be surprised by what you discover. Now let's talk about the emotional cost of working. How do you feel on Sundays as you begin to think about the work week? Are you excited or do you dread it? How does that affect your Sundays at home? Do you look at your calendar and tense up when you see the week ahead? Do you wish you had more time to spend with your children? Maybe you wish you could cook at home more and it's on your someday I will list. Do you feel stressed about not being better organized at home? Are you constantly worrying about asking your employer for time off to attend to family needs? All these things might be causing you more stress than you realize. Long-term stress impacts your overall well-being and even how you treat your family. Am I right? If this is resonating, let me know in a review. I'd love to read your feedback. And this exercise is not about shame. You're doing the best with where you are right now. It's about getting clear on how working outside your home is impacting you and your family emotionally. I want to pause here for a moment and give you time to reflect on the potential benefits to being home. This is where we get to dream a little. Let's consider the potential benefits of making this transition to full-time life at home. Yes, I'm going to tell you to make another list. I told you, I'm a list girl. Write down all the wonderful benefits you, your faith, your children, your husband, your home, and maybe even your pets might enjoy. This is where you get to imagine a better way. Dare to dream a little. Dreaming costs you nothing, sister. So consider it and write it down. What would it look and feel like to be home? What would you do differently with your time? How would you feel if you owned your time and had the flexibility to structure your days around the needs and priorities of your family? What creative or faith goals could you explore? Are there things you desire to learn and grow in? Once I began to really look at the hidden costs of working, the childcare, commuting, eating out, even the emotional exhaustion I was experiencing, I realized something that surprised me. Working was actually really expensive and taking a major toll on my emotional well being and how I showed up at home with my family. That realization shifted everything for me. It helped me see that maybe, just maybe, the dream of being home wasn't as far out of reach as I thought. And maybe the benefits would outweigh the sacrifice. Let's talk about your budget. This change will require some sacrifice and a willingness to make adjustments. And that starts with knowing exactly where you stand. Every family should have a plan for how their resources are being used, not just for necessities like housing, food, and transportation, but also for all those little extras that quietly add up month after month. So if you don't already have one, take time to create, review, or update your family budget. Sit down with your husband, pray together, and ask God to give you wisdom as you evaluate your finances. This step isn't about restricting yourself, it's about realignment. Once you've looked at the numbers, begin to ask yourself some honest questions. What am I willing to reduce or let go of, at least for a season? What things have become habits that maybe don't serve our family's priorities anymore? Are there subscriptions, services, or routines that we could pause or simplify? These questions are important because wanting a lifestyle change without adjusting your spending won't work for very long. You'll need to look at your ongoing expenses through a new lens, not one of lack, but one of being purposeful and intentional about your spending. We all have needs, but this world has a way of draining our bank account fast. The key is to know where your money is going and what changes you're willing to make so your dream of being home can become a reality. In my free guide, Start Your Journey Home, I included a simple dual income budget worksheet to help you get started. I encourage you to visit my website, take the quiz, download the guide, and print it out. You can follow along as we walk through this process together. When I first created our family budget, I'll be honest, I kind of geeked out a little. I'm a list girl, and a good Excel spreadsheet with automatic formulas just makes me so happy. We've always tracked how much is coming in and how much is going out. And it's been one of the most freeing habits we've developed as a couple. Our budget became more than just numbers on a page. It became a reflection of our priorities as a family. Once we knew where our money was really going, we started making intentional decisions, choosing homemade over takeout, for example, pausing extras for a season, and celebrating small financial wins together. We realized that budgeting isn't a burden. It's a tool to give you visibility, accountability, and ultimately peace of mind, because you know where your money's going. So start there. Be prayerful, be honest, and remember that every wise financial decision you make in faith is a seed of stewardship that God can multiply. Have you ever heard the saying, the more you make, the more you spend? That was true for us as a family. When I worked full-time and both my husband and I were earning steady incomes, I operated with an unspoken sense of entitlement. I'm contributing so I can spend how I please, was my mindset. I rarely felt the need to check in with my husband about small purchases, which can really add up over time. Truthfully, we both did this. With money flowing in weekly from one job or the other, there didn't seem to be a reason to think twice. When I decided to step away from my career and focus on my home and family, I knew something had to give. And that something was my spending. I didn't stop spending altogether. Instead, I started spending smarter. As a new stay-at-home mom, I had to make significant changes to my spending habits. But that didn't always mean sacrificing quality. I simply had to become more intentional about where our money was going. I learned to shop in bulk, compare prices, and plan ahead. Costco and Walmart became regular stops, and I quickly learned which stores offered better deals on specific items. Yes, it took more time and planning to do it this way, but the savings were real and every dollar stretched a little bit further. I also challenged myself to make do with what we already had in the fridge and pantry. Reducing the number of grocery trips made a big impact. We all know how easy it is to run in for two or three things and walk out with a full cart, especially if we're hungry, tired, or stressed. That's when the comfort items sneak in and we let our emotions or our appetites do the shopping. One surprising change that helped us save in the long run was switching to a monthly meat subscription service. It sounds counterintuitive. At first glance, it seemed more expensive per pound than the grocery store, but the real value came from always having high quality proteins on hand. It drastically reduced our last minute trips to the store or worse, last minute takeout orders. Having a well stocked freezer helped me cook more nutritious meals at home, save time, and stay on track with our budget. Eating out is an area where two income households can easily spend a lot of money. When both parents are working outside the home, there's often little time or energy left to prepare meals consistently. We were no different. But becoming a stay-at-home mom gave me the time and space in my mind to plan ahead, strategize, and do more with less. With some thought and a little bit of preparation, I found that we could cook more meals at home and feel less overwhelmed in the process. Some simple strategies made a big difference. For example, keeping ingredients on hand for quick and easy favorites. Cooking larger meals on weekends to enjoy leftovers throughout the week. Stocking a few frozen items for those extra busy days. We always keep a frozen pizza or two ready to go. Delivery adds up quickly, and this way we're prepared. And to boost the nutrition, I like to add veggies from the fridge or protein from earlier meals. And batch cooking. This one has been a game changer. One of my favorite batch cooking methods is making a big pot of shredded chicken. I simmer chicken with a little olive oil, onion, tomatoes, salt, and pepper. It's simple but very flavorful. It takes about 30 minutes if the chicken is defrosted, a little longer if you're cooking it from frozen. That one pot of chicken becomes the base for 3 or more meals. Caesar salads, chicken taquitos, one of my children's favorites, chicken Alfredo, or extra protein on a frozen pizza. It saves both time and money and gives me peace of mind knowing that I'm prepared. There are different things like this you'll pick up over time. Yes, there's a learning curve, but before you know it, you'll be managing your resources more wisely, spending less, and maximizing your time and energy. I don't do this perfectly. Life as a stay-at-home mom is still very full. Managing our home, homeschooling our children, shuttling them to and from activities, pouring into my people, and remembering to nourish my own soul all takes effort, time, and intention. Some days, despite my best efforts, I forget to defrost the meat or start dinner before we leave the house. Suddenly, it's 6:30 p.m., everyone's hungry, and we're pulling into a drive-thru. I've learned to give myself grace. An occasional takeout meal isn't going to break the bank these days, but I do try not to rely too heavily on convenience. With a little bit of planning, learning, and effort, I know I can serve my family healthier and more affordable meals right at home. There's so much helpful content out there now that you can learn from. Everything from meal planning tips, simple crock-pot recipes, even 5-ingredient dinners you can throw together in a pinch. Another useful tool has been investing in a crock-pot and keeping a few simple staple ingredients on hand has helped us make better choices on the busiest of days. I'm still learning and my crock-pot journey is fairly new, but I'm experimenting with new recipes and finding out what works best for my family. Finally, and perhaps the biggest shift that helped me come home and stay here for the past 8 years, honest, ongoing communication with my husband. This journey isn't just about managing our money well so we could be more present at home. It's about managing our hearts well. And one of the most important ways we do that is through unity in our marriages. When we invite our husbands into the process, when we talk openly about our needs, our dreams, and even our fears, it changes everything. I know money conversations aren't always easy, especially if you haven't had them before, but honest communication brings alignment. And when you're aligned, you can make powerful decisions together. When you're working together, you can accomplish so much more. So communicate with your husband, agree on your priorities, make cuts for a season together, and know that it gets easier with time. It takes discipline and sacrifice, yes, but over time, you'll find joy in it. You'll get excited about finding a good deal, you'll resist the shiny impulse buys, and start to choose what truly matters most. And remember, it all belongs to God. As Romans 11:6 tells us, "For from him and through him and to him are all things. His is all the glory." What he places in our hands isn't solely for our own needs, comfort, and enjoyment. It's meant to bless others, to serve others, and to honor him. 1 Peter 4:10 also says each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. As I was learning to spend smarter and live simpler, God began to show me something deeper. This wasn't just about money, it's about making the most out of what He has entrusted to us. Our marriages, our children, the time in our day, and all the resources we have available to us are meant to honor Him and to love others. Luke 16:10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." How we manage the small things, our time, our home, and finances, reveals how much we trust God and how willing we are to honor Him in every area of our lives. He's inviting us to live surrendered, to trust that when we handle what He has given us with wisdom and gratitude, He'll take care of the rest. Proverbs 21:5 tells us the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. And that abundance isn't always about money. It's about enjoying God and what He has given us more fully with peace and contentment. When we manage our resources prayerfully, we begin to see that every dollar, every decision, and every sacrifice can be an act of worship. As you dream of coming home, as you take steps to live on one income, or as you simply try to live more intentionally with what you have, remember this: stewardship is not about perfection, it's about partnership. You're partnering with God to create a life that reflects His priorities and His heart. Matthew 6:21 says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." When our treasure, our time, our focus, and our finances are centered on the things of God, our heart follows. So keep bringing your plans, your marriage, and your finances before Him. Ask Him for wisdom and let Him lead you step by step. He is faithful to provide, and He delights in guiding you toward greater peace and purpose. Remember this: communicate with your husband, agree on your priorities, and trust God with the process. Over time, you'll find yourself choosing what matters most and realizing you don't miss the things you once thought you couldn't live without. If this episode encouraged you, please leave me a 5-star review along with your honest feedback. It helps me know what is resonating with you as I create more content to help guide you on your journey to greater peace, presence, and purpose at home. And if you haven't already done so, visit carlabmonterosa.com to enjoy my free resources and download your guide, Start Your Journey Home. It's full of biblical wisdom, practical tools, and encouragement to help you take your next step forward. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Discovering Home. Until next time, God bless you.